feel like with Tommy calling the plays, maybe the biggest change has been with the run game. And I know it's only very, very small sample size, but where have you noticed, maybe a difference in how he's calling the run game compared to Kevin?
And like you said, it's a small sample size, but just going back and just looking at it, of course, you got to always look at the situation, and you got to look at the time on the clock, and you got to put that in play. But I thought that last week, of course, he leaned on it a little bit more, maybe.
When you are facing so many stat boxes?
That's the challenge. And that's a lot of respect to the line, of course. Start there first, and then, of course, then the running backs. But no excuses. We still got to turn cracks in the hose.
Okay. I was just going to follow up and just say, can you, and I know you guys did some different things with Malachi and the jet sweeps and stuff like that, but do you kind of have to keep getting creative like that to loosen up those boxes a little bit?
Yeah, we look to be creative each and every week. And, of course, like you just said earlier, just knowing what type of box you're going to face, 8 and 9 guys sometimes, you got to make sure that you're on point on how you're going to attack. Not only that many people are in the box, but they're all coming downhill to create one wall. So it's kind of hard sometimes, but we just got to take advantage of what they give us.
Along those lines, I know the Ravens' run defense has really improved over their last handful of games, and they've moved Kyle Hamilton more into the box. Like, what are the challenges with that compared to week 2 when you guys saw them last?
Yeah, but historically, when you think about the Ravens, just as long as Harbaugh's been there, they've been a good run defense. They take pride in stopping the run. So for them to make that adjustment, that was coming if they were struggling in the run game like they were. But this has always been a good team versus the run, and we got our work cut out for us. But when they put another guy like Kyle in the box, who I got a lot of respect for because he's a guy that can play nickel, backer, dime backer, he can play safety. He's aggressive, so you got to account for him. And it creates some mismatches sometimes, especially when they're receivers that's going in and trying to block them, and that's what they want to do.
One of Quinshon's strengths is patience, letting the play develop. Do you think that's just an instinctual thing, or do you work with him on it?
We work on it, and it's instinctual too. And certain concepts bring that, where you got to be patient, and certain concepts you can't be patient. So, and he does a great job at that. Along with his vision, if you're patient, you got to have good vision. You got to have an idea on how the block's going to be surfaced and who's going to who. So he does a great job at that.
He's had some success bouncing plays to the outside. Don't look like they're designed to go out there. Is that kind of connected to the patience and the vision and being able to wait?
Yeah, it's connected to the patience, of course, the vision, and also creating that one wall that I just spoke of. When everybody comes downhill and they have a gap, and if Q is patient, he's able to see some of that and make a decision.
Really happy with, with his vision and his choices when he's running the football?
Yeah, I've been happy. Of course, there's a lot of things that he can work on. He'd be the first to tell you. But being out here now, doing what he's doing, missing training camp, not really having those days. Those are valuable days that he didn't get a chance to get. And being able to come in and just go from the board film to the field, it's been good for him.
Obviously played the position, you know it so well. When you see a guy like Derrick Henry, who's been so good for so long, especially with his style, such a physical runner, just what do you think of that?
Man, I want to know what he's eating, drinking, whatever it is, man. I got a lot of respect for Derrick. Just sitting back, watching him, of course, when, he was with Tennessee or whatever, and now coming to the Ravens, being able to pick up where he left off at. Because a lot of times when you have running backs that go to other teams, you're like, okay, this year he's going to fall off. You're still waiting. This year he's going to fall off. You're still waiting. Then you see the videos of him running up a hill, pulling weight behind it. This guy hit the fountain of youth somewhere.
Dylan Sampson, do you feel like in this final 8 games of the season, that's one area that you guys can kind of mine a little bit for more production?
Yeah, without a doubt. And we have conversations about him, of course, just putting him in certain situations where we can just concentrate on his skill set, because he has one. No matter if it's in the passing game, he's a great runner. We saw that at Tennessee, and we saw that those couple snaps versus Cincinnati, of course. But just being able to get him in some situations and kind of get that 1-2 punch going with him, Q. Actually 1-3, him, Q, and Jerome.
How do you keep Jerome kind of ready to kind of step
I'm sorry, I
in?
couldn't
How
hear
do you keep Jerome kind of ready to step in when because he has gone in kind of at certain snaps and everything, and how does he kind of handle that sort of just waiting for those opportunities?
Yeah, Jerome is a savvy vet. I'm glad to have him in my room. Works hard. He helped the others. And he knows when that time is called, he's there. So no matter if it's third down, no matter if it's second down, somebody need a blow, no matter when it is, he's right there to step in and do his job. And I'm really, really happy to see just his production on third down. And you go back and watch some of the things he's been doing, from picking up blitzes, being able to know who he has, put people in the right situation, being able to chip, help the line. He's been outstanding.
Teams are really stacking the box against you guys and trying to sort of sell out to stop the run. Just how do you go about teaching your guys or work with your guys to attack that situation when you know there's going to be maybe higher numbers of guys in that box trying to stop them and work?
Yeah, every yard matters, and that's what I tell the running backs. You get a chance to turn the film on, and you see just what you said. A lot of teams stacking the box, coming down, creating one wall, but once again, our motto is turn cracks into holes. So if we see a crack, we definitely want to hit it. And sometimes you can, break arm tackles and continue to keep your legs churning to kind of run through it. But as a running back, you like, okay, I'm being patient. I want the big one. But sometimes you just got to keep churning, keep chopping, and it'll come.
You just had 300-pound fullback, and he's healthy again. I was just curious, when you played, did you like having that big dude in front of you?
Yeah, I did, and God bless the day, it was Kevin Turner. I don't know if you remember that name. What an outstanding fullback. And I'm sitting up here talking fullback, and I see wide eyes like, wow, you played a long time ago. Yes, I did. I played a long time ago. But you see a lot of teams, and to this day, of course, like you said, Baltimore, Detroit, when they get a chance, they take a tight end or a true fullback with Kabinda a couple years ago when they had him. When you have a guy, a true fullback, that can get his pass down and run through contact and run through these backers, this day and time, defenses sometimes struggle to fit against a true fullback because it's not worked on like it was in my years. But just being able to be on the other sideline and see a fullback, I kind of chuckle sometimes and be like, those were my days.
Ebbs and flows to the NFL, like it evolves over time. As you talk about like fullbacks, do you think there's a world where, that position comes back to being more prominent, especially with like nowadays guys are drafting guys that are like these quick linebackers that can like go cover and they're not as like big and bruising and trying to do you think there's a world where that happens?
Yeah, I really do. When you talk about the linebackers that's being drafted, that linebacker today that you spoke of, he has to be able to match number 3 in the passing game sometimes, and that number 3 receiver is fast. So, of course, you think about it. Look at Kansas City. They play with a fullback. We talked about Detroit, putting the Y back there and having a fullback a year or two ago with Kabinda. Of course, Baltimore. It's a couple teams that have fullbacks, and I guess just having one is one thing, but going back to the old school way of using them is another. Yeah, thanks.
joked a little bit that he's getting bored with seeing so few targets. I guess in his position, is there anything you can do to, kind of fight back against that, or you just have to let it play out and let the game come to you?
Stay ready so we don't have to get ready. He's a guy that he's been resilient through his technique so that he can help our team. So really just being consistent with that, right? And then he also knows in his leadership role that there's others that are looking to him, whether it's, Miles, whether it's some of the other guys, Dom, that we have on the roster. Obviously, TC coming in, like really respecting his play. So, like, how we do things and make things as a statement for our room is very important.
I think the last time we talked to you, Tyson had just come over in the trade. Just what have you seen from him as he's continued to just kind of get acclimated and grow even more in his role with the team?
He's our type of guy. Our room is extremely competitive. They're extremely tough, and they're well connected. The guys are a very cohesive group that they value the things that Jim thinks, and I said thinks, that we know that are very important for defense: violence, effort, and passion. So when you have a student like that comes in the room, everything that he does is a statement as a student, right? He does everything that's important with Coach Stefanski, and he's a guy that, we talk about being resilient together. He's a young guy. As soon as he came in, he understood the fact that families stick together and families do the things that are required to win. So happy to have that young man in our squad.
Lamar Jackson, now that he's been back for a couple of weeks, what is the messaging to your guys in the back end of what you can do to play him a little bit better?
Yes. First we got to do our job. And doing our job, we got to do a fantastic job with perimeter run support. We got to stop the run, and then we got to take away his legs, right? He's a young guy that really scrambles outside the pocket, makes off-target throws. So we got to do a good job winning early, plastering late so that our engine can get home. And then at the end of it, we got to win on third downs. As a segment, we got to execute the calls, we got to communicate, and we got to play extremely fast.
I ask you this question about Denzel. Have you noticed a big difference this year with teams not going his way as much as they have in the past?
I would say not so much. He's a guy that, since, we've been blessed to be in the building, he's a young guy that a lot of people respect, right? But he's also a young guy that when his name has been called, he's really been in position to, take advantage of those throws and those opportunities for our team. So, really this year, he's definitely arrow up, tackling better. He's a trusted teammate as far as a communicator. So I think that's what we are seeing, this season, where they know where he's at, right? He's really in good position. And then the thing that also why he's not getting a lot of targets, our engine, right? Like our engine is getting home. Like they're getting home, they're playing violent, they're playing with effort, they're playing with passion, and that's something that really helps us as the tip of the spear.
I've seen this before, but Denzel never really seems to grade out very high, like on Pro Football Focus, and I don't know if you pay any attention to those, but I can't even remember where he is this week. But it just doesn't seem like it matches up with his ability or his level of play. So can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, the best ability is availability. So having him on the field, like having his energy, his toughness, his competitiveness is very important to us. Now, when I'm looking at the Pro Football Focus, like I'm one of those guys that keep my focus on the work. And my role here is to serve our guys to do the very best for our defense and our team. So we really just keep the focus on that and remain fundamentally sound.
Denzel, sometimes you see these replays or whatever where he's almost like running the route for the guy.
Sure.
Right? I didn't think of one against Minnesota. There's been some other opportunities like that too. What allows him to do that? Like what goes into him being able to sort of anticipate what a guy's going to do before he even does it?
Sure. It really starts with, leadership. The way that Kevin schedules a lot of things, that if you're not on special teams, you're with the position coaches and you're learning more. So Denzel gets a lot of other time to work through football one-on-ones, tendencies, formational IDs. And then with that, he's also when he comes out to practice, he gets a lot of time to really work his fundamentals on the other details. You know, when we talk about the football 101s, right, these are the 80%ers. And we try to make sure that we keep him in his strength zone. So you're seeing a student that's really getting a lot of time on task, who trusts time on task, and really is playing with a really good group. You know, we highlight our defensive line because that's the engine, and obviously that's how we get places. But then also, like, our linebackers and our safeties, they do a really good job communicating. So when we're talking about football 101s or some of the small tips week to week so that we can play fast, they do an outstanding job communicating that. And then being the tip of the spear, right? Like, we talk about, like, we're the rims and tires, right? So we complement our GPS and our nerve center, and we complement the engine. So he's in position to just do his role, and he's a trusted teammate by doing it.
Tyson, just given his size and given the speed he has, like, how versatile can he be, and like, how much more do you think you guys can unlock with him because of those traits in this defense?
His potential is through the roof. You know, we talk about, you know, respect and reputation. And he's a respected young guy who has a reputation of being a very hard-edged player who gives great effort. Obviously, we see the physicality out there. And then, like, being within our scheme, you see the swag. And we talk about, you know, like, swag comes from knowing what to do, playing fast, and having fun, right? So, like, he's a young guy who is totally bought into what's important to us as a team.
When you look at the Ravens receiving core, you can drill tight ends in if you want, but what stands out, and then what will they be missing if Bateman's not able to play?
You know what? It's a group that's very versatile. It's a group that has speed. They play with physicality. You know, this is an AFC North team, which, you know, that's where we're looking very forward to getting back in front of our fans so that, you know, we can help neutralize some of that, you know, collectively with ourselves and our fans out there. So this is a group that when they catch the ball, like, this is a group that's really good short space quickness. So we got to do a really good job communicating, capturing those guys. And then when Lamar gets out of the pocket, this is a group that really does a good job at improving, right? And improving fast, right? The guys know what to do. They execute it well. So we have to be at high alert on those things.
It's a bit of a random question, but I think there's only 4 cornerbacks on the active roster right now. Like, who would kind of step up as, like, the backup nickel to
Say that again?
Who would kind of step up as the backup nickel to Miles? Or I know you guys, you know, put safeties in those spots, but in terms of, like, cornerbacks, you know, who would you kind of trust to put in there if you needed?
That's a really good question. You know, all of our guys are versatile. So, you know, if in the event there was an issue with personnel, you know, we have all 4 of those guys have the ability to come inside to really, like, disrupt timing and really stay tight for our defensive line. Okay, thanks.